I'm all in.
Without looking?
Without looking. I'm not looking. I haven't looked. I don't care. I know it's a random hand, and I got a random hand. I wouldn't lie. You can.
You didn't look at either
looked.
card. Did you look at your cards at all? I mean, it's...
Look, the people at home, no, I haven't looked.
Well, if you haven't looked, I guess I'll just move in.
Right. Phil ships and Tony calls.
Why do we admire those who bluff well and disdain those who lie? In both cases, we're saying things that aren't true, that mislead. But there's a difference between them. We sense it intuitively, though it's hard to define exactly what the distinction is. And the closer we come, the blurrier it gets. The question about the bluffing-lying difference leads to economics, money, and negotiation. In a widely read article, titled, "Is Business Bluffing Ethical?" author Albert Carr makes two claims. First, falsehood ceases to be falsehood when it is understood on all sides that the truth is not expected to be spoken. In other words, it isn't lying if people aren't assuming honesty. As happens, for example, at a comedy show. Importantly, this doesn't mean people are expecting false words and claims. Instead, they don't know what to expect. What's coming may be dependable, or it may not be. The only certainty is uncertainty. And, in that environment, lying can't exist because the meaning of words goes beyond the truth and lies opposition. Just like the words of a joke are neither true nor false, but humorous. So too, bluffing is misleading, but not lying. Second, Carr suggests that this untruth, which is nevertheless not a lie, is an exact description of bluffing as it exists in poker, and in diplomacy, and in business. So, this is a strange reality. One that may be called bluffing. But no matter the name, it's an environment where you're allowed to intentionally mislead others. Where you can contradict the truth, and still not be a liar. Let's see what this looks like again, at the poker table. Keep focused on this player's glancing eyes. While everyone is distracted by the man in the dark jacket talking, he quickly looks at his cards. Right there. Here. He surreptitiously looks again.
Tony.
I'm all in.
Pot limit, brah.
Without looking?
Without looking.
You can imagine what's coming next at the table. First, though, let's see the theory. There are two harmonious relations between people. In one, both sides expect truth. Here, when someone deviates, it's a lie. But, more than that, it's a betrayal. Not just of the other person, but of the entire context for discussion. It destroys the foundation for words. There's no longer any point, or reason to keep conversing. Why would you talk when you're not getting anything back that's worth hearing? Ultimately, while this situation may be disappointing, it is easy to manage. When we're getting lies, we just stop listening. In the other relation, the boundaries are different. Because neither side expects truth, it's not possible to deviate. In other words, you can't break the rules, even if you want to. And lies become bluffs. At least, that's the way it is around the poker table. In other places, the labels may change. Regardless, in poker, bluffs are admirable, at least when well used. And, more importantly, they support the entire context of discussion. Talk may not be true, but it is meaningful. And though the words may lead to frustration and losses, there's always a good reason to stay involved in the conversation. It's that the words are interesting, even if misleading. Up to here, the rules for conversation are clear. Big problems come, however, when the sides cross. It's difficult to handle the mismatch. It's like two people speaking different languages. There's no right and no wrong in this confusing reality. There can't be, because they can't even find a common ground for deciding. Finally, it's crucial that the difference between lies and bluffs has nothing to do with the truth. It only concerns what the speakers expect from each other. And when expectations fail to match, it's hard to know whether to speak up or go silent. Here's what that uncomfortable reality looks like.
I'm not looking. I haven't looked.
Did you look at your cards at all? I mean, it's...
Look, the people at home, no, I haven't looked.
Well, if you haven't looked, I guess I'll just move in.
All right.
Phil ships and Tony calls.
All right, you're close. You're up there.
Oh, you lied.
Of course I lied. It's poker, Phil. What do you think this is?
Why would you lie? I mean, no, let's consider totally not uncool, man. That's horrible etiquette to say you didn't look at your hand and then...
I'm a poker
you're
player.
the kind of guy that goes to the golf course and when someone's playing you a big money match, you scream in the middle of their backswing.
You think that's the same thing?
Yes. I know it's the same thing.
It's not clear whether lying at the poker table is the same as screaming and interrupting a rival's golf shot. It is evident, though, that conflicts involving truth, bluffs, and lies arise constantly in the economic world. Here are two examples. In both, what's not in dispute is that misleading information gets provided abundantly. It's harder to articulate, though, exactly if and when the misleading converts from bluffing into lying. The first example deals with negotiating to buy a car. The man starts off by asserting that people constantly ask him about the subject, and so he implies he must be an expert. Everyone will have to decide for themselves whether that is truth, lie, or bluff.
People are always asking me how to negotiate a car. So here are my top tips for getting the best deal for you. Well, you find out what the overall price is and then you flinch. What do I mean by flinch? You go, wow, that's a bit more expensive than I was expecting to pay. What can you do to help me? Now, usually car salespeople are really trained well on this and they'll say, well, that's the price. And they'll say, well, if you are going to buy this car, I might go and see the sales manager and see what he can do. And these fictitious, sometimes, sales managers who don't exist is just a way of negotiating the price. Ask about what extras they might throw in and even free servicing. They'll say the service department is a different department and they can't give you a discount on that. Don't believe them. Keep pushing them. And then this is what I do. I walk out. Now, I've tried this 3 times and 3 times it's worked. It's when you get to the door of the car showroom walking out, the salesperson goes, oh Derek, oh how stupid of me, I can't believe I'd forgotten we'd had a special email down giving extra discounts this morning but I didn't have time to read it. Come back in, sit down and let's see if I can, through this head office offer, get you another £100 off.
The second example of bluffing versus lying involves renting a car, and the story of a young man who believes he was cheated. Just as background, the guy is apologizing to his online followers because he reviewed a regular Land Rover as the turbocharged version.
As for the Range Rover Sport, the guy said he paid 74 grand for it brand new, and he said it was supercharged, but I'm starting to believe he just said that to make people believe it is supercharged just to get people to rent his car. I mean, it was a great car, don't get me wrong. It was nice to drive, it had plenty of power, so you don't really need the supercharger, but still, very misleading. And when I did the 0 to 60 video, I knew something was fishy when I didn't hear a supercharger whine. And then I also looked at some other people's videos and I thought, there's a supercharged indicator on the dashboard. Why isn't it on my rental car? Well, turns out it isn't supercharged. I've just been gypped. Can you believe that?
That's the right question. And answering becomes very difficult when there's uncertainty about whether and which business transactions are like poker games.